Hi everyone! Today I'll be reviewing and doing a flip through of the new book from Hanna Karlzon. It's called Atlantis and it's the same size, shape and format as the previous books Tales from the Witch's Cottage, Midnight Masquerade and City Among the Stars. This one has a soft grey-blue cover with silver foiling, and as the title suggests, it's all about the lost city of Atlantis. So let's have a look inside. Here on the title page, there's a little crab to colour. He's holding on to what looks like, I think, a seashell. And then we have the book belongs to page. I believe that's what this says. And you can write your name here or the date that you started the book. It's up to you what you want to write on there. Next up, we have the first full illustration, and it's a crane holding onto a gemstone. It looks like he's fishing for treasure because if we look underneath the waterline, you can see we have lots of ancient pottery and jewellery. So this crane's doing a bit of mudlarking, which, if you don't know what that is, it's where people go into rivers and canals with their wellies on and they see what treasures they can find in the sludge. On the facing page, we have what could be the Queen of Atlantis looking on, and I just adore the way that the natural flow of her hair eventually shifts into these cresting waves of the ocean. It's all these little bits of coral that she's got embedded into the crown of her hair, and I think it's obvious that this character's embodying the personification of the ocean. Here we have what looks like a mandala made up from seashells of different types. There's flat shells and conchas and bits of coral and seaweed. They all make up something that looks a bit like a piece of elaborate jewellery. And that's a running theme throughout this book as well, the jewellery. I'd like to believe that these birds on the facing page are the collectors of materials that they will bring from the land, drop them into the sea, and then the mermaids will create their own jewellery pieces. That's my little story for them anyway. Here is a huge double page spread which takes us down onto the seabed itself, where the natural gemstone colours of the coral reef are joined by man-made jewels and all of the artefacts as well. I adore the Grecian designs on these pots. It really makes it feel like an ancient lost world, all these ancient Greek relics just landed at the bottom of the ocean. I love it. This is a really fantastic book. Here we have a couple of koi carp in Hanna's style, which could be coloured in contrasting colours to make them a little bit more interesting. And then we have a beautiful mermaid surrounded by this stone arch, which I love. It reminds me a little bit of shipwrecks. If you've ever seen the footage of the Titanic ruins and how certain pieces of the wreckage are still in incredibly good condition and very elaborate in the design, it is amazing to see. Again, we have a lady here whose hair replicates the ebb and flow of waves. And it almost seems to me like she's actually up out of the water and in the sky because she's surrounded by stars. This looks like the moon behind her, so maybe it means she's escaped that lost world for a little while. And then here we have a beautifully decorated perfume bottle, which again is more lost treasure from land to ocean. And it's been inhabited by a couple of jellyfish, and all the barnacles and coral have crusted themselves onto the edges and are now adding to that design. Here's a simple ring of flowers surrounding a dragonfly. This would actually be nice to colour harmoniously, I think, so that it all stays cohesive, keeping it all blues and greens, or just the other side of the colour wheel, keeping it all nice and together. And the petals also on these plants are pretty big, so they would be really good for you to practice your blends. Facing that is this seahorse, who actually seems to be made up of the coral and crystal formations that you might find in the reef. He's holding on to this lantern, which could be attracting the dragonflies and or the other waterly insects. Is waterly a word? I don't know, it is now. The other waterly insects. So here's another double page spread, and this one is quite epic. We've got this huge arch that the pod of dolphins are swimming through, and then the remains of the rest of a building with these 4 broken pillars on the left. And again, here at the bottom, so much detail of coral, the plant life, the animals that live in this world, like this octopus and this little school of fish that's emerging from the leaves over here. This mermaid's used some of the old jewellery collected by those birds earlier, and along with some seashells, fashioned herself a fan that she's very coquettishly hiding behind. And I love the sense of movement in this piece, with the hair sort of frozen in place as if you're underwater with her. The nautilus on this page is encrusted again with plant life and crystals, And unfortunately, you can see that some of my colouring on the next page has bled through to the other side. This is purely because I was using quite a lot of water, which wasn't a problem, but then I used sharp coloured pencils on top of that, and I think that's what's made the imprint come through to the other side. So here she is, a stone bust, which I knew I had to colour in this grey greenish tone, purely because it reminded me of the Statue of Liberty, so I just had that feel for it. I used Prismacolor and Luminance pencils for this, and some Neocolor too for the watery background. There was a tutorial for these bubbles that I followed by Olivier Oderon, which I will link to in the description. And these bubbles are the reason for that bleed through on the other side, because I did them with the coloured pencil over the top of where I applied the water. But you can see the rest of the page absolutely fine, even though I did use a lot of water on this background to blend in the neo colours. So it is great paper. Across from her, we've got another school of jellyfish. Are jellyfish called a school, or is there another collective term for jellyfish? You'll let me know in the comments, I'm sure. I'm going to go with school of jellyfish for now. So in typical Hanna style, we now have two ladies that are facing each other, and this is a perfect opportunity for contrasting colours on each side. So day and night, hot and cold. It's totally up to you what you do. I did a pointillism and cross-hatching technique on a similar page of Hanna's from Dag Drama, I think it was, her first book. So I think these spreads where the two people are facing each other are fantastic opportunities for doing something different on either side, but finding some way to tie them in, whether that's the colour of their jewellery or the metal that's used, or the flowers being the same colour. It's a really good opportunity to stretch your creativity a little bit. So this page to me looks like a fish showing off in front of an old mirror. He's found a huge jewel and he's having a little show-off dance in front of it. Speaking of people facing each other, we have this love heart shape of two mermaids, and this would be fantastic for a Valentine's colour along or a buddy colour. Again, choosing lights and darks, or however you wanted to do it to make those two sides contrast a little bit. Here we have a collection of lilies, almost like a bouquet with the shell at the bottom holding them all together. And then this was a huge contender for the page that I was going to colour for this review. It's a cracked crystal geode, which would look incredible with sparkly gel pens or shimmering paint. I do have a tutorial for colouring a geode, which I will leave in the description in case you want to try it. Can you imagine scuba diving and just coming across all of this golden jewellery? How incredible would that be? I want to live in this world, if that wasn't obvious. So here we've got some more architecture, which looks like it's about to be swallowed up by this hidden octopus who has plastered itself to the back. And we have another inhabitant of Atlantis here, surrounded by pearl-clutching crabs. So I'm thinking that these are her little minions that go and find the little pearls and bring them back so she can make all of her gorgeous jewellery. Again, we've got another couple of mermaids facing each other and using these shells, it seems, to talk to one another. There's a lot of blank space at the top of this scene, so I don't know if you want to try and create more scenery by drawing in some fish or just simply fill in a block background, but you've got that chance to do that, and that chance is replicated a few times in this book. So if you're feeling daring and like you're able to draw a few fish in there or some background scenery, that's a really good way, a really good page for you to do that. So we have now this warrior portrait, and he's wearing battle armour and ready to fight for Atlantis. I'm saying he, it could be a woman. I'm not being sexist. It's just initially when you say warrior, soldier, you think of a male. But yes, so there's me trying to cycle back and backpedal so I don't offend anybody. But anyway, so a warrior here, and he looks like he's ready to fight. And then here we've just got a elaborate plant pot and some dragonflies making their home within the leaves. Now this page is interesting because, as I said with the other page, it's got lots of space. This one is all justified on the lower left frame of the page, leaving loads of space for you to decide what goes behind this, or even finish off the whole illustration and make a whole page if you wanted to do that. But again, you're not forced to if you don't want to. Now here we have got what looks like a true seahorse because it's got the seahorse tail, and of course it is a horse. I think this illustration actually would have been better positioned next to our warrior because it seems like this horse might have been that warrior's steed. Now this lady's having a whale of a time, and I'm just wondering whether these characters that don't seem to be underwater might be referencing when Atlantis was a city above the ocean before it was lost to the waves. And this piece is almost Art Deco in design, very geometrical, and probably would lend itself best to a metallic colour palette. So I'm not entirely sure what this key unlocks, but these two fish are going to have to go the same way and work together if they want to keep hold of it. So maybe there's a metaphor for teamwork in there. Here's some close-ups of the necklaces that I assume were found on the ocean floor or made by those mermaid crafters that live down here. And I'm not sure what this is. Again, very Art Deco in design. Maybe it's some sort of mirror with a dragonfly superimposed on the top. I don't know, but these pages will be very quick to colour and not as daunting as a lot of the others that have some very intricate detail. Here we've got another broken archway with a stunning mermaid inside again, whose tail seems to be replicating the seahorse that she's holding on to. Maybe she's actually the warrior's wife in our little story and she's waiting for her warrior to come home. I don't know. There we go. We're making a story out of this book, or at least I am. And here's a close-up of that bird that delivers all of the jewels from land to sea. He himself has been adorned with a crown made from all different kinds of pearls and gemstones. This page reminds me of one from Hanna's first book that we mentioned earlier, Dagdrama. And again, you really get that sense of movement from left to right across the pages, as if this school is just rushing past. Another very simple motif here, alongside this gorgeous griffin set onto a cracked stone plinth. I would love to colour that one. And then we've got these young people who I believe must be the prince and the princess of Atlantis in my story, with these really extravagant ornamental headpieces. They also don't look very happy, which is indicative of them being royalty, if they're anything like our royals. Shush, shush. Least said the better. Let's have a look what we've got. Oh, more seahorses entwined with the coral, and then this seashell, which seems to be holding up a palace ruin. So that's either a super small palace or an absolutely gigantic seashell. I'll let you make your mind up about that. Another easy motif here, looking almost like this crab is designing something out of the vines of these plants. And on the facing page, we've got a portrait of a Grecian woman holding a vase and looking off to the side, with lots of detail around the frame. This one would be nice actually displayed and framed. It seems like a piece of artwork that you might find in an ancient temple or something on the wall. These two fish seem to be delivering this huge shell packed with crystals to who? I'm not sure. Possibly this lady on the right hand side. She's got a very elaborate headdress as well, so I don't know who she is in the hierarchy down here in our Atlantis. Again, I'll let you decide. So this lady, I feel, must be the mother of the fish. Maybe she helps to heal the sick animals down there in Atlantis. And then this really cute duck is kicking his feet just under the surface, where we've got this very shallow body of water and two little frogs, again with some keys. I'm still wondering what those keys will unlock. Now this was another contender for my coloured piece because I really like how the whole scene is contained and it feels like a snapshot in time. In the end, I got a little bit daunted by how I would make this lower half look like it was underwater compared to the upper section. And I think I was overthinking it a bit, which is why I decided to go with the simpler page that I did. We've got another lady here, and despite her being adorned with all the jewels, I feel like she might be the embodiment of the crazy cat lady of the underwater world of Atlantis. I don't know why. I get that feeling that she just looks like she'd be a bit more chaotic than the others. She's got a ship here on her necklace, which could mean that she is secretly a siren that lures ships to their demise. I don't know, but she's quirky. I like her. Now we've got that octopus from earlier who has now started to cling on to a cluster of crystals. Gosh, try saying that when you're drunk. And is surrounded by this circular border, which very much reminds me of Johanna Basford's Lost Ocean. Off to the left, we've got another decorative jug spilling over with some flowers. Here's another framed gilded portrait with lots of gems that would look fantastic, coloured, very sparkly. And again with the movement, this rush of fish swimming through, I can imagine the colours almost being a blur, and I would really like to see if someone manages to pull that off with colouring and just creating this whoosh effect. This is another one that I really like, again because it's contained into a decorative frame and there isn't really too much tiny detail on there. This mermaid's popping her head up out of the water and looking at a carpet of water lilies and dragonflies. You can imagine this looking amazing when it's coloured. And then over here we've got this frog who is looking very pleased with himself, sat just above the water on a floating rock. And finally, we have a message in a bottle bobbing along. Could it be a message from the mermaids of Atlantis to the land folk? Well, we'll never know because this is the end of the book. I really, really hope you enjoyed watching this video. I bought my copy of this book from iMusic and I will leave the link in the description. Otherwise, it's available to pre-order from Amazon, but it's not out quite yet. But if you want it now, have a look on iMusic. I believe they deliver worldwide and they were very quick with my order. So yeah, all links below. If you have any questions or anything, just let me know in the comments. I love to hear from you and I will see you soon on Colour with Claire.